Former President Jacob Zuma's legal team will have today to appeal to the Pietermaritzburg High Court, or should I say to appeal a Pietermaritzburg High Court decision to keep Advocate Billy Downer in the arms deal trial. Now, the trial is set to get underway on the 11th of April. Now, Zuma believes that if Downer is kept on the case, he is not guaranteed a fair trial. Let's get more now on this from our senior politics reporter, Ziyanda Ngcobo, who has been following the story for some time. Ziyanda, Good morning to you. So today is the deadline for former President Jacob Zuma to try and appeal the decision to keep Billy Downer on this case. Take us back a little bit. Off the case, rather. Take us back.
So in January, you'll recall that there was that oral, those oral hearings that were heard where the former president's lawyers were arguing why then Advocate Billy Downer does not have the title to prosecute this matter. Subsequent to that, on the 16th of February, Judge Pitkun himself said he doesn't believe that this case would have reasonable prospects of success in an appeal court. But our laws say that he can directly petition the Supreme Court of Appeal because he genuinely feels that there's some kind of Zuma laws, as Advocate Dalimpofu had put it, in the way in which then this case has been managed, both from a procedural perspective but also from a substantive perspective, Xoli. So those papers we're expecting the former president's lawyers to submit them before the court in Bloemfontein.
Yeah. Let's talk about what the complaints of the former president are exactly against Billy Downer. What is he alleged to have done? Because the former president has gone to an extent of going and opening a charge against Billy Downer in a police station.
Sure, you will know that this matter is nearly 2 decades in the making. But let me start off with what you've just touched on. They raised a procedural issue with the fact that Billy Downer was the one who deposed the affidavit in response to this leave to appeal application that the former president's lawyers had submitted. They were saying, how is it okay that a man who has been charged and is currently being investigated is being given an opportunity now to depose an affidavit on behalf of the National Prosecuting Authority? So that was an issue that they'd raised. However, the National Prosecuting Authority has said, look, you have had several opportunities to raise issue. You've copied and pasted literally 135 paragraphs from your attempt to stay this prosecution. You were not granted, a permanent stay of prosecution, and now you're trying to find a backdoor way using Section 106 of the Criminal Procedures Act to try and actually get out of this trial. Last year, you'll know that they were denied then that application to have Billy Downer removed, and one of the conditions there was to say that if you remove Billy Downer, then give the former president an immediate acquittal. We now know that the Pietermaritzburg High Court has said Billy Downer is going nowhere. The issues of whether or not he has a title to prosecute and how those words, title to prosecute, have been interpreted according to the law is also another issue that the former president's lawyers have taken aim at. They've said that the court has not looked at a broad and widened understanding of what title to prosecute means. And of course, you'll know from the political perspective, the former president has maintained that this all forms part of a larger political witch hunt. Billy Downer is one of the people who had deposed an affidavit alongside the Democratic Alliance when this matter started in the mid-2000s, saying that how can a prosecutor now side with the political party when it comes to whether or not this case should actually still be put on the court's roll. So they've taken aim with that. The spy tape saga as well, still forming part of that. But again, the courts have made a pronouncement on this, Xoli, that in the Supreme Court of Appeal, the very Supreme Court of Appeal that they plan to depose papers in, to say that even if there's evidence of political interference, for as long as there's enough evidence to be tested before a court, a trial must go ahead.
So let's fast forward then, Ziyanda Ngcobo, and you were down at the Pietermaritzburg High Court, and this is where the case was dismissed for the former president to file an application for leave to appeal. But he does have the option of petitioning the Supreme Court of Appeal directly. What is the indication from the former president's camp? Are they going to go that route of directly petitioning the Supreme Court of Appeal?
I've reached out to one of the attorneys, and it would seem as though that they plan to file the papers later this afternoon. Perhaps the plan will change, but as far as I know, the plan is to submit those papers by this afternoon. And they've said on several occasions that there's no trial that's going to get underway on the 11th of April until Billy Downer is removed as a lead prosecutor. Remember that Billy Downer is the same person who successfully prosecuted Schabir Shaik in 2005. And Schabir Shaik is a key component of this particular trial. In fact, at the time it was said, that there's a parallel trial that was being run against Zuma whilst Schabir Shaik was on trial, and we all know the consequences. The former president was then fired by Thabo Mbeki and so forth. In fact, the courts have even spoken about this, Xoli, to say the argument of prejudice on the part of former President Jacob Zuma does not hold when it comes to the political witch hunt, because he was still able to become president of the Republic of South Africa despite whatever might have happened, feeling like the national prosecuting authorities back and forth on whether or not this matter should go underway might have had on his career. So those pronouncements have actually been made upon.
Let's make it clear then to the viewer, Ziyanda, that if the former president does not succeed at the Supreme Court of Appeal, if the court says we don't even want to hear this, does that mean that this case does resume the actual trial that the former president has been accused of actually trying every trick in the book to not get it started? Are we now at that stage where we could actually finally see it get underway?
It could still go all the way to the Constitutional Court, Xoli, and that's exactly what that's part of the criticism that's been lodged against the former president, that he's using the long arm of the law to avoid the trial beginning. But the former president's lawyers are saying that's not true. They don't have issue with the trial going ahead. They have an issue with Billy Downer. In fact, at some stage when we were at the Pietermaritzburg High Court, one of the legal experts that we had on air was saying, well, perhaps then, if there could be a discussion about a compromise, maybe not remove Billy Downer in the case, but just remove him as the lead, but keep him there because of the institutional memory that he has. The NPA responded very quickly to say there's no way that Billy Downer is going. He is the lead prosecutor. You can only remove a lead prosecutor if they don't have a title to prosecute. Hence, my comments earlier to say that wording about title to prosecute, when you no longer have a title to prosecute and the circumstances under which you no longer have a title to prosecute, is actually what's in dispute here.
The one area that we haven't really touched on, and very briefly if you can, it's that the former president is saying if he were to succeed in removing Billy Downer from this case, then it means that the entire NPA is tainted in his view, and therefore no one is fit enough in the prosecuting authority to prosecute him, because in a way they are all painted with the same brush. Wasn't that part of what they were arguing?
In essence, that was part of what they had argued, but the response to that, which if you speak to lawyers across the board, is that the former president procedurally so acted in a topsy-turvy manner. So he only opened the case against Billy Downer after he'd filed this motion to have Billy Downer removed as the prosecutor. Yeah. He never approached the ethics office of the National Prosecuting Authority. The argument was, if you felt so strongly about the conduct of Mr. Billy Downer back then, you already should have raised this issue with the ethics office. You also had the Legal Practitioners Council, which you could have also approached if you felt that Billy Downer was such a problem and that the entire NPA is such a problem. They've also used the affidavit of, Judge Hofmeyer, not Judge Hofmeyer, Advocate Hofmeyer, I should say, from within the NPA, who back then at the time had said then, that the charges against the former president had no standing. However, we all know that Advocate Hofmeyer had actually come back and said that he no longer stands by what he said. So certainly, yes, there is an element of the NPA having a lot of back and forth, even internally. In fact, the former president's lawyers described it as two camps within the NPA, those who believe the former president should be prosecuted and those who don't believe the former president should be prosecuted. And I think, you know, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about was there no space for any kind of compromise? How much longer is this matter going to go on for? And there are even questions about the costs of continuing it with this in 2022 and whether or not this will still have prospects of success. Witnesses, some may have died, some may not even remember the details as crystallized the manner in which you would need them to. And so these are all the issues then that are expected to be ventilated.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, thank you very much for that very, very detailed explanation about where we are on this particular case. So we're going to wait and see whether indeed the former president is going to lodge his papers.